The Riven going out fast, the Malphite going out fast as well. I figured, as we were talking before, I said they might force Mega to play on Malphite, but they've taken it away from him.
Yeah, and the last ban is going to have to be a Renekton unless they wanted to first pick that for Psycho Sid, because they're very clearly banning out Mega Zero here and kind of daring him to go on something else. But if they ban Twisted Fate, this actually tells me that Vulcan would want to pick Renekton, because if anything is trying to be denied from Mega Zero, it's usually Renekton.
We'll have to see what they ban. They may be trying to force Vulcan into something as well, knowing they may not have Renekton. This could change up a lot for Marn. That's their fight team. Claky D loves the Jarvan in the jungle. That's going to still be open. So is the Nasus, so I'm figuring if Smithy takes that, Claky takes Jarvan. But it's still really a toss-up for what Mega's going to have here.
And it's so cool here in Week 10, the final week of the spring split here, how many games these guys have to pull from.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting here because, remember, the one time Marn has beaten Vulcan, they had a Diana and a Nidalee ban. But they left Nidalee open, but Renekton was also left open, so Vulcan wanted to steal that away from Mega Zero, and I really wonder if Echo is going to try to play Nidalee, or if they're just going to give it all to Vulcan, and they're just going to go with Thresh and Shen instead. I think that's a very interesting choice. I really don't know what's going to happen after this Riv.
A little bit of global presence there, even though Karthus and Twisted Fate are off of this. Jarvan rather, Claky D has played Nocturne in the past, so they could get that composition with Shen, Dive Buddies going in. But yeah, it's really a toss-up. These teams haven't kind of picked this way from the beginning. I
know, this is a little bit strange for these guys. They're almost a little bit off kilter. I mean, yes, Mega Zero's Shen has been played in the past, but it's definitely not his style of champion, right? Like, if anything, we're going to see a very aggressive Mega Zero on Shen. And if Vulcan ends up going with the Nivea here, it will be a kind of a different playstyle for them. It almost tells me that Mandatory Cloud doesn't want to play Nidalee with Renekton, because Nidalee is usually in their kind of poke disengage based comps, but they might be wanting to go all in. I actually don't know what to predict here for Vulcan.
I'm surprised it's not the Nasus pickup. If you were going to have an Anivia, how many AoE ultimates can you just stack on top of each other with Renekton, Nasus, and then Anivia? So that would be a great comp. Looks like they might try to steal Jarvan away from Claky, though. Still trying to throw Marn off their comfort zone in almost every lane.
And we got to remember, Vulcan has had 2.5 weeks to try to plan for this game.
That's true.
In particular, they know that Marn is really their #1 competitor, because what matters to them is the difference between 6th and 7th. And that could very well be decided by this game. So what they've done so far is really just denied Marn 3 of their prime picks. I mean, when Marn beat CLG, it was often just off the back of Heartbeat's awesome crescendos, right? Claky D will pick Jarvan every single game. Mega Zero's best top lane champion, arguably, is probably Renekton, and Vulcan has taken all 3 of those. So hopefully Vulcan has actually prepared properly, and they know how to play this composition, because you can get yourself in a bit of trouble just taking away other teams' champions if you don't actually know how to play them yourself.
Forcing yourself into something. We'll have to see if they have thrown themselves kind of on the edge of their comfort zone with these picks. Marn taking their sweet time here with these with pick 3 and 4 as they hover over 2 mids, but we've also seen LeBlanc played in the support position, which they already have Thresh. So.
Yeah, and LeBlanc has been played in the support position by Daydream before, but the fact that they're hovering over that for so long made me think that they were going to swap off of it at the end there. And this is really interesting, because we have seen Claky D's jungle Evelynn, but we've also seen a lot of mid Evelynn. The last Eve I saw was in OGN Spring a couple days ago, when I believe it was MVP Blue that was playing it. They ran it with Ignite. I don't know if Claky D would be quite so bold in this one, but it is a very bold choice, and that tells me Marn wants to kind of like all-in initiate. And you hear teams talk about Eve comps a lot of the time. If you're going to run Eve mid, you need to have a lot of essentially follow-up damage to go with her, because she initiates fights, and she really has to initiate fights because her ultimate does all the damage off of their current health. So if you're trying to ult low health targets on Eve, it actually doesn't do any damage.
So it's probably going to be Claky D on Shen in the jungle then. It would make Lantern ganks a little bit easier. It would make the ganks in general easier.
I'm actually not sure about that, right? Because we have seen jungle Shen in the past. Mega Zero would make sense that he's top Shen, since all of his champions were banned or picked out already. So they're kind of out of top lane choices for him, unless he decided to play Rumble, like you were saying. And I don't know what Marn's going to go for that last pick, because Vulcan just locked in the Zuna and the Ryze. So this would be very interesting for that last choice.
The Tristana pickup for a bit of safety for Zuna. He loves the long-range champions. Didn't see him do too well on Vayne, so that's going to be in his wheelhouse right there. But yeah, they have to lock it in for Marn. Marn has really taken all the time they can use for each one of these picks. I feel like they've kind of, like you said, been thrown off kilter with what they were banned out. Mega Zero is the force that they look to get kind of fed in a double lift kind of way for them.
And the only pick that really wasn't stolen away are the last 2 by Vulcan, because the first 3 were straight out of Marn's champion pool. And it actually does seem to have Marn in a slightly different situation. Heartbeat probably can play Thresh, but he is still a newer support player.
Right.
You could tell the thing that he was practicing the most was Sona, because that was increasingly getting better every single game. Obviously, Vulcan took that away, both to deny him and also to give it to Bloodwater, because Bloodwater's favorite support is probably Sona. And whatever this last pick is really going to try to tell us where things are going. The support is Thresh, obviously, but if they do Lux, that would make my prediction that it's an Eve jungle, Lux mid, and Shen top, but it could actually still change around.
It looks like it could, will be what they will lock in as they swap it around. Obviously, Mega Zero gonna bruiser it up and Twitch in the top lane as of right now. No, I'm just kidding. So locking that in. So the Renekton was taken away as we were talking before, and then they did pick up their Sona on Bloodwater, so they have that call shot initiation if they want it. We were talking about good amount of crowd control really to fight back against the initiation of what? For game 1 of day 2 in Super Week.
And I really want to see if Vulcan does anything crazy level 1, since they've been the ones with the most prep time. Obviously, Marn had to play that game yesterday against TSM, which they almost came out on top of. And it's really just been Vulcan. Vulcan has 3 games today, so none of them are actually more important than their very first game. It's a long time to be off from competitive games, and they have to come in hot in this one, because Marn is a very momentum-based team, and Vulcan really has to keep them down.
Zuna has said in the past they are a team that works off of momentum. So like you said, that first game of the day is one of the biggest, especially for them. Marn being seen here, they C4 and probably assume that Claky D is also there on Evelyn, as he is. They start to back off. It looks like very defensive play here from Vulcan as they just keep 3 by the Wraiths. They're not looking to really do too much. Mandatory Cloud puts a pretty deep ward down by the Dragon.
Yeah, Bloodwater puts down his pink ward to clear out one of the wards that Marn went and placed. And I can kind of see why Vulcan is sitting back and put a bunch of wards in the river, because if you look at the level 1 kind of pick/fight potential that Marn has here, they'd have the hook from Thresh, the potential binding from Echo's Lux, or even a taunt from Mega Zero. Whereas if you look at Vulcan, the real only thing they have is a rune prison for Mandatory Cloud, which is like a 1-second route early on in the game. So even though Vulcan has had so much time to potentially prepare a level 1 strategy, they realize the huge team comp disadvantage they have, and that's why they put so many early wards in the river.
It looks like they may try to 2v1 the middle with the AD carry here if they can keep their positioning. Well, we see Echo holding off to help out with Wraiths, or Wolves, and it's going to be Wraiths on the other side, I should say, for Vulcan, as Mandatory Cloud helping out Psycho Sid to get up this blue buff. And
Vulcan helping out xSmithy realizes that even though Marn wanted to get vision of where he was starting, they don't know, because they placed that pink ward, which just allowed them not to have vision of the Wraiths.
So we only see 2 4 pots to start, Psycho Sid and Mega Zero, as they haven't really moved towards lane yet. We do see that it is going to be Psycho Sid in the top, and they will swap the AD carry and support, but it's not to mid, it's to that top lane. So Marn calls it in, and it looks like Niantanso and Heartbeat will be first against Psycho Sid on Renekton in that top lane.
And this is going to be another one of those tests for Mega Zero, because he just loves to fight people 1v1. He has been getting increasingly better at dealing with the 1v2 scenarios, but now he's on Shen, who usually is a good 1v2er, but it's not something that he's played a lot of. The interesting thing is, actually, as soon as I talk about the 2v1s for too long, he's not 2v1ing. There's 2 people mid, so he's actually going to be going 1v1 against Rise, which should be a favorable matchup for Mega Zero.
Right, well, they actually just gave Mandatory Cloud blue. He took it to himself. He's going to go down to that bottom lane. We'll have to see how he uses that against Shen. Obviously, with that energy resource, he's going to be able to keep in the fight. They start going back and forth. Claky D gets his own buff. Looks like xSmithy's going to be forced to walk out of that just with the harass.
That was a really clutch steal by Claky D. He hits level 3 with that and actually gets a bit of an early edge on xSmithy. xSmithy's pissed off at that one, though. He's actually going to try to steal from Claky D still, and they're going for a kill.
Wow, Zuna jumping over the wall, trying to get more damage on. They want to harass Claky out of the jungle and really be able to pressure here.
I mean, one of the big reasons you actually put the AD carrying support in mid lane is so you can control the enemy jungle buffs, but they failed to do that on Claky D. They didn't shut him down on blue buff or on red buff, so that's a detriment in a number of ways for them, because not only did Vulcan not get the buff steal, they're probably not going to push down mid lane turret, and it also puts Mega Zero in a good situation going up against Rise in this bottom lane.
See if they can push it down. Mega is 3 to Rise is 2. ManCloud actually just hitting that, so if Mega Zero can use that to his advantage here coming up, if they can get a gank onto Mandatory Cloud, it's just going to make it that much more stressful for them to really continue this game. xSmithy on the outside here for Psycho Sid. Heartbeat is quite close, but he's doing a good job of zoning.
Yeah, and they might try to go in for a gank here if Heartbeat and Niantanso get too aggressive. They're hoping they see a counterattack, and they're just going straight for it.
Flashed over it. He flashes the toss, though. They try to go back for the death sentence. Just pulls in some gold.
So that is just another one of Xmithy's moves around the map that doesn't quite pay off. And there's another thing that I need to point out near the bottom lane is Mandatory Cloud actually did pick up a blue buff when Xmithy started with the red buff. So it does hurt Xmithy, but it does give Mandatory Cloud hopefully some breathing room in this lane against Shen. Yeah. But even with the blue buff and the harass, he's still sitting at low mana, and Mega Zero is still beating him in minion kills 21-16.
Yeah, really punishing that lane. He got his 1v1, so he's more than happy. Give the other guy some buffs. He will still fight it out. Coming up on 4 minutes. It's only a 200 gold lead in favor of Marn, and that's the CS we were just talking about. We're going to see Zuna putting a little bit of pressure onto Echo, just trying to get those explosive shots harassed down, but they're not doing too much turret damage in any of the lanes yet. And
the lane pressure for Vulcan isn't there because Xmithy has done a bunch of fail ganks. Maybe this one will work, but it is very difficult to gank a Shen because of the taunt and the flash. I don't think Mega's going to have to burn flash here.
No, he holds that. The Room Prison, a little delayed on it when he taunted out, but they were able to get it. I thought they were coming down as soon as the blue wore off, but good play there by Mega Zero to keep himself safe. Psycho Sid in that top lane is 11-23 CS. I guess if you would match it up against Shen, but he's not in the 2v1.
Yeah, it does tell you, though, that the play may be working out a bit for them because you're looking at Lux in the mid lane and it's 26 because those are the 1v2 matchups, right? Psycho Sid's got the 15 and Echo's sitting at 26, and the turrets are actually falling for Vulcan a little bit more. Psycho Sid has lost about 3/4 of that turret, if I'm safe to say that, and he still hasn't hit level 6, so this is working out a little bit early for Marn, even though the gold lead isn't showing it yet.
Yeah, they started to put pressure on a little bit harder. Once they saw Smithy in that bottom lane, they put damage on the top. Now putting damage on the mid here as they know the junglers are not going to be present for a few minutes, and it looks like they will take some turret damage as well.
Wonder where the bit of action is going to come out, because a lot of times when you're in these 2v1 lanes, if you're not seeing the early turret dives, you don't really know where action is going to get created because the 2v1 lanes get to wards so well, and even then when the kill pressure comes, it's just a 2v2, and there's usually the 1v2 in the lane is low beforehand, so they really don't get to have much happen. With all that, though, Thresh is roaming down into the mid lane, so maybe we're going to see some mismatches.
I was going to say we could see Smithy go top, but that was only because Heartbeats flashes down from that last engagement. Looks like he actually doesn't go top, and he starts to come mid here. Maybe he could go for the lane gank to help out mid. Clicky D just on the backside as well.
Yeah, I want to see the item growth on Clicky D as well. He started with a Spirit Stone, but he's also went for a Doran's Ring and a Pink Ward, so haven't seen too much jungle even. We have to keep track of what he builds for the rest of the game.
Looks like they could take the turret down here. They don't have too much wave clear on Marn's side, and they're actually not going to get too much poke either. It was all harass coming from Zuna on that one.
Gotta see if that turret falls down, because when Marn decided to do that lane swap, they actually lost pressure on the top turret that Psycho Sid has been holding, because Neon Tanso can't actually get close to Psycho Sid at this point. Psycho Sid's level 6, and if he jumped on Twitch, he would pretty much have to force him to flash away if Psycho Sid has burned his ultimate. So now we're seeing Thresh actually moving back towards the top lane, potentially trying to push that turret down.
That was a quick move there to allow Echo the back and to get back into his lane, but I don't think he's going to have one for very long. He maybe push back here. Smithy trying to push through. No, he's just going to be there for some aggression. They take down the turret, the first one of the game here. And it looks like they are going to start taking that lead.
All right, so Vulcan gets the mid turret first, which is really big thing for them. Even though it's probably getting traded for this other turret, that type of trade gives more map pressure to Vulcan because you can make so many more moves around the mid turret. It gives you better access to the jungle buffs that Vulcan was trying to steal at the start of the game. And the main thing they actually sacrificed during all of that was Xmithy's experience a little bit because he was roaming around so much and wasn't really able to farm.
See who's really grabbing advantages in lane. Tiers being stacked up for both of the mids, Echo and Mandatory Cloud on Rise and Lux. Picking those up here as we come up to 8 minutes. The gold lead still in favor of Marn, if you will. And Echo looks to go farming or ward placing here. We haven't seen really mids going after the Wraiths in the jungle as much. It's here or there, but usually you'd see Scar on it every time it came up. Why aren't they putting a lot of focus on it as they used to?
It really depends on the mid, right? Because in Season 1, Season 2, they were kind of comically easy to clear. You could do it with a spell rotation, they'd be gone. But now with all the health popped into the big one, unless you're something like Diana or maybe even Gragas sometimes, you can't take them easily without taking a bunch of damage. Because imagine a Rise running into that lane, or even a Lux going into that lane. Even if she burns her full spell combo, she's got to auto attack the big Wraith like 4 or 5 times, and she'd actually lose a bunch of pressure and presence in the mid lane. So these matchups in particular don't really have good Wraith killers from the mid lane.
All right, see Clicky D picking up his red and possibly a little presence in lane. Echo could be walking through a ward here. Is he? Oh, he's to place a ward and kill one. Looks like he may get caught here by Rise, though. He's got to be very careful. Mandatory Cloud started to peek down, but Echo heads right out to safety.
And in the bottom lane here, the lanes have just kind of been like, all right, now we're going to fight each other. We've managed to finish off our turrets. And let's kind of take stock at how this fight's going to happen, because there's Zuna, who's got a BF sword and a Doran's with no boots, but Neontanso has boots too and a Vamp Scepter. And there's actually some aggression coming down from Vulcan, because they know they had a Jarvan in the back, but Neontanso just decides to get out of there.
That was a lot of damage on Neontanso with 0 traded back.
And I really think that has to do with the BF sword versus just the Vamp Scepter, because Neontanso was thinking he was just going to have a happy farm 2v1 day where he can kind of ignore any harass he gets down from the one person and just keep pushing turrets. But as soon as they get into direct trades between Zuna and Neontanso, he can't stand there at Brawl. So Neontanso will want to heal back up if he's able to lifesteal creeps, but the pressure potential with Crescendo being up is very dangerous.
That death sentence just missing for Clicky D, but they could go for the Lantern. Clicky has to turn back to get it and walks right into a Crescendo. It's dance time coming from Vulcan. They could turn this one around. Neontanso goes down on the outside. Mandatory Cloud has teleported in for this one. Picks up a double kill, looking for the triple kill. He will find it. The quadrant going to Mega Zero. If they can get that slow cord onto him, he's just out of range. Vulcan still coming up with 3 for 1.
Vulcan read that Thresh gank like a book. They shot them back after the Lantern and Shed started coming in. Then it landed the perfect crescendo, and all that delay gave Mandatory Cloud time to teleport in and really make it a straight up 4-man fight for Vulcan. And since they'd gotten so much damage on the counterattack when Marn was trying to chase them down, they just wiped the floor with them. And getting a triple kill onto Rise that early is incredible for Mandatory Cloud. He's going to get so strong as this game moves on.
That puts him at about 1,800 gold right now for himself. He'll probably be able to get that Rod of Ages finished, and that's going to start stacking around 11 minutes.
Getting that Rod of Ages so early is going to be unreal for Mandatory Cloud. He picks that up 10 minutes, 54 seconds.
Wow. And
for those of you with Rod of Ages, it takes 10 minutes to stack fully up, which is actually going to be like during the mid-game still, right? So he's going to become late-game Rise much earlier than usual, and that is terrible news for Marn.
So now, once that teleport comes back up, he becomes so much stronger once again, turning a complete fight around there. Marn looks to get a little bit of an advantage back here.
And this might work out for them, since they realized that everyone from Vulcan had just went back to base. After the fight, Vulcan spent a little bit too much time farming up, and Marn, kind of unfazed by that disastrous fight they just gave out to Mandatory Cloud, does actually gain a temporary lead in the overall gold because they were able to sneak that dragon down. So even though it was a disaster in the bottom lane, they did bounce back from it with a pretty smart play.
So Clicky D lost his Echo rather lost his mid turret, goes to the top lane where he does have a safe turret to farm on, and he could really be helpful in these last fights. So that positioning up top could be hurting Marn if they just continue to go down for these objective fights.
Yeah, we've had a lot of just lane swapping around. It's not really like we have a mid or a top. I want to call them like side laners now, but at the same time,
yep.
Echo is a mid laner, and he's been in top lane and bottom lane this whole time. Like, in that actual matchup in the top lane, like, Echo's got to be very careful of Psycho Sid, just because Renekton is better in a long lane than Lux. Lux can't really run away. And it does seem like Vulcan's focus, though, is in the bottom lane. They want to make sure to get Zuna going. I mean, in games where Zuna or Mandatory Cloud get going, Vulcan pretty much decides to win. Right. And 3 assists in that one counter gank for Vulcan, and they're going in again as Xmithy tries to come down.
Little quick there, or rather Xmithy wasn't that close and walking through a ward, so they backed off. Still, the pressure on the lane is going to help quite a bit. Clicky D looks to kind of put a counter on this one.
And he actually walked past a pink ward way earlier on in the river, so Vulcan knows something is probably up, even though they have no vision on him directly now. It's just prompting Zuna to back up a little bit and be like, let's not get Eve ganked. We want to make sure that Neontanso doesn't get going on Twitch.
So Echo returns back to mid lane. You can see the confidence right now of Mandatory Cloud. He's passed the river by himself. Looks like Echo picking up the final spark blue buff for himself, and looks like he will be able to siege a little bit better. Backing up. We actually see Rise now going back to now take some of those minions that he's kind of fed.
Yeah, he's just able to spam a bunch of his spells because he completed all his mana items so early. So even when he doesn't have blue buff, he can sustain his mana for a fair amount of time in the lane. And I want to touch on Clicky D's items because we said we'd get back to it earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe not, because Xmithy is going in.
Oh, going in onto Heartbeat. That red buff is on. Looks like they only get a bit of damage here. And we return back to Clicky's items.
Yeah, of course we're going to go back to Clicky's item. He's got that Wraith Spirit. I feel like something's going to happen, man. I could be wrong. We got the Wraith Spirit on Clicky D, and that's actually one of the most efficient items in the game with the 50 ability power, 10 CDR, and just the spell vamp for Clicky D in the jungle, because Eve doesn't have any innate sustain mechanics. So building that item early will give him the CDR that he needs on Eve to get the ultimate cooldowns, but also just complete sustain in the jungle. And it is pretty much the only option I think Jungle Elite has.
A blue buff will help that pretty well too, as they take it away from Mandatory Cloud. Like we said, it's not going to hurt him too much. He's got the tier already. He just won't have the cooldowns he's really looking for from that. Probably not going to run out of mana anytime soon with that Rod of Ages stacking. 3-0-0. He holds all 3 kills for his team right now. And Niantanso picking up 1 for his team previously in an engagement. He's going for Bilgewater and looking like Blade of the Rune King build for himself.
And the only thing that's really gone right in this game for Vulcan is that triple kill that Mandatory Cloud picked up in the bottom. Because you look at everything else, right? They had the failed jungle invade at the very start of the game, where ClayKD was able to pick up his red buff regardless of the double man mid. They were able to push down the first turret as well. They got the dragon, and they're generally out farming the lanes. I mean, you look at Niantanso's Twitch versus Zuna's Tristana, it's a 20 minion kill advantage. Echo is out farming Mandatory Cloud as well. Mega Zero is out farming Psycho Sid as well, even though they haven't been directly matched up in lane. So aside from that ridiculously great triple kill that Vulcan picked up, Marn has been applying adequate pressure to keep themselves in the lead.
Going back, finally picking up boots. Mandatory Cloud gets those tier 1s and a little bit of magic resistance with a no magic mantle, so he can really stay in these fights and get himself super aggressive in this early part of the game. Still only 15 minutes in. Looks like they're trying to just harass all over. The blue buff was down, so that was just a laser to the wolf camp.
And it wouldn't actually surprise me if that no magic mantle turns into Mercury Treads at some point. He doesn't want to get comboed out by Lux, and he'll be able to kind of move out of the slow a little bit more when Lux is trying to harass, and maybe get out of the stun if Echo's not super quick with his lineups. Even Mega Zero taunts, any of those things, he's going to want to get out a little bit sooner, because Ryze is more of a kind of standing turret of damage who needs to be able to cast their spells and move around a little bit. So he would need the Mercury Treads if he decides to go for it. He just have to make sure to build magic penetration later. I have seen a lot of Ryzes go Mercury Treads because it's a tankier type of caster, and you might need that magic resist and tenacity.
Sunfire Fort Pots mirrored in the top lane right now, both for Mega Zero and Psycho Sid. We see Smithy joining Mandatory Cloud in mid. And Psycho is getting a little bit better of Mega here. He doesn't really have the wards to show him far up top. Actually, he does. They have those 2 wards that would show him far up top. So he's actually farming quite safely right now and still putting pressure on towards Psycho.
And you can see, even though there's that pressure in the top lane from Marn, the ward control by Vulcan towards the Dragon. Like, Vulcan knows they lost the last one because they were backing at a bad time, but they do not want to lose this one. I mean, both teams are focusing on it fairly heavily. There's actually 2 vision wards and 3 regular blue wards, along with 3 wards from Marn as well in that area. So 8 wards overall around that dragon that's going to be up in 45 seconds, and it would not surprise me if we saw a big fight. ManCloud actually flash teleporting in.
He gets there, his Distortion Boots just finished, so that's going to help him do this continuously. Could they get the kill in Heartbeat? He's the first one to go down. They look for Niantanso, but he cleanses off. Spray and pray from the back line. Zuna knocks him back with the blast, and it looks like ClayKD can try to continue this fight. The final spark procs on, but Lux isn't there to continue the damage. Can they get into this fight? Mega Zero there to join now the brawl. He's coming in to help. Zuna cleanses, goes down quickly after to expunge. They will not finish the fight, and the minion wave pushes out Vulcan.
So a 1-for-1 in all of that, but it was actually a 4v5 for Vulcan because Psycho Sid is pushing up that turret and just continuing on. That was a situation where Vulcan tried to make something happen before the Dragon and try to get back into it, and they actually did just get the turret and made a positive move regardless.
Looks like the minion wave top pushing here, but Psycho's not going to continue that one. He wants to see if he can steal a red buff, then go back to the top. They're getting everything they can off of a bit of this bottom pressure here. He looks like he's going to be focusing mid. He's actually getting all the lanes pushed, so he's going to go to mid now and just really create, like I said, more pressure.
And we might see round 2 of Marn's Dragon just antics if they go for it right now, because they know that after Vulcan had that fight, they would have all went back to base. They know Psycho Sid was in top lane, so Marn would have to get this down really fast. I think Vulcan knows what's up. Xsmithy does have a smite if he wants to steal. They might try to close in on this, but that Dragon is getting low fast.
The ping came in. Xsmithy's the only one there now. Mandatory Cloud locking down Echo, but he has the position to turn around and throw his spells. Now, Echo does put back the Lucent Singularity. There's the final spark. It's going to hit the back line, but I don't know if it's enough damage. Mandatory Cloud still alive. Mana very low for him. Psycho Sid is low as well, and the ultimate is out. Zuna from the back line coming in 100% here. They lock down Mega Zero, but he's quite tanky already. The Sunfire Cape putting back some of that damage, and it looks like they still 1-for-1.
And we can't forget about the Dragon as well as a blue buff trying to be stolen. Vulcan is very low on mana for Mandatory Cloud, and he actually did not pick up that blue buff, so his mana will not be getting up anytime sooner. But it does seem like Marn is disinterested in continuing this fight. They want to go back to base and heal up a little bit. And Vulcan probably realizes this, and they're thinking, all right, we'll take the free treat.
Yeah, they're going to grab it this time. The entire fight was really Psycho Sid in the top lane, coming down the whole time. They were able to stop it and pick it up after the entire engagement. Big things for them, put them up 2,000 gold, 5-3 here, 19 minutes in. And it's really been kind of a slowed down game. No, actually, he just buys up that chain vest, so he still has money under his belt. So Mandatory Cloud still kind of leveled off after getting those 3 kills. Still doing better than Echo. He has finished Morello Namicon, though. Trying to get back into this game. Infinity Edge, the Blade of the Rune King, as we look at the AD carries. And like we said, the top 4 is just really the Sunfire Capes.
Ooh, so
that was close.
Blue buff does end up going to Echo. That's the 2nd consecutive steal they've been able to take away, and that's one of the things they've been doing to try to keep Mandatory Cloud down a little bit is they've stolen both blue buffs for him. But because Marn puts so much impact on the blue buff, they're losing pressure on the other side of the map as Vulcan almost takes that turret down.
They have the wards to kind of stay and be aggressive here, Jat. They have 3 pushing down in middle. We'll have to see if Vulcan's split push technique here actually with 2 and 3 is enough to kind of keep Marn in their own base.
And let's actually take a closer look at what Mandatory Cloud has accomplished. So if we look at the gold, it's 7,300 to 6,100 against Echo on the other side. And the big thing that Mandatory Cloud needs is he needs to finish that Glacial Shroud / Frozen Heart in his items to get back that cooldown reduction. Rise really relies on CDR, and since he doesn't have the blue buff, he actually can't machine gun turret himself in team fights. He does have those distortion boots, so both his flash and teleport are on 25% reduced summoner spell cooldowns, and most rises also go the utility spec, so that's closer to 35%, right? So he can teleport and flash a lot for plays that Vulcan is trying to make around the map.
Right.
With the Glacial Shroud coming in, he's becoming that critical mass rise that might be able to carry them through, but the game is still incredibly close.
Also grabbing a little bit of that cooldown reduction he's been looking for from the blue buffs he's not getting, and that's really credit to Marn right now for sticking on top of that timer and really giving Vulcan a hard time there. See what happens. Those wards in the top side of the jungle, there's still 2 by Baron, but they have fizzled out a bit, as you can see. Pushed all the way now to Marn's side. They kind of forgot about the top lane. A lot of the action is mid towards bottom. We really haven't seen much Baron.
Niantanso's going on Vulcan.
Niantanso. Azuna uses his jump in and then rockets back, but the expunge completely obliterates the rest of Zuna's health bar.
Yeah, good luck dealing with that. That's one of the things Twitch can do. He can just ambush you. Zuna was really going for kind of the farm-based build. You can see he picked up his Avarice Blade component of his Static Shiv before a crit cloak or attack speed. He wasn't really getting much power out of that immediately, and when he got opened up on with the Blade of the Rune King from Niantanso, his initial instinct was to jump on him and outduel him, but he just realized that Twitch was too much to handle since he had all that attack speed from the start, and it was just over before it started for Niantanso.
That initial act of Blade of the Rune King trying to change his mind in that fight. 22 minutes here into this one, Jat. Marn kind of taking re-control of the game. They were getting pushed back here in the beginning. This control of the buffs, the dragons that they've kind of forced but lost are still pressuring Vulcan enough to make them sway the advantage they have.
And for Marn, Niantanso is the big story in this one. It's turning into that. He's the only one on the team that has kills. He is actually top gold in the game now after he got that turret and kill on Zuna. So he is now the big threat that everyone has to worry about. And Twitch gets to hit 5 people at the end of the game, by the way, if they're all lined up with that spray and pray. So he is not to be taken lightly, and it's about what can Vulcan do to dive onto Niantanso and finish him off. They have Psycho sit on Renekton, and potentially Mandatory Cloud if he's able to run through, plus X Smithy's dunk from Jarvan 4. But I really think that that's what this game is about now, because sneakily Niantanso has picked up, you know, 50 more minion kills roughly than Zuna, and every single kill from Marn, as I mentioned earlier. So it's just, it's going to be a very scary rat.
It's becoming one of those games, and it's, I forgot who it was yesterday, Kobe and I were talking about it, that if the kills are all focused on one person, it can sometimes get scary. And you have that now, actually, between Mandatory Cloud. There is 1 kill on Bloodwater, but it's on Twitch. Is there a fall off between those two, and is it okay to give them all the kills all the time right now?
It's time for a 1v1. Like, of the 2 teams, there's actually very few people that they'd be better having the kills on. Like, you could argue that Zuna would be better to have the kills than Mandatory Cloud. But of the mid lane magic damage champions, Rise is one of the best scaling people to get gold on, right? So they're both very potent carries in both of these situations, and we might actually get the 1v1 we were looking for, because Niantanso was trying to find Mandatory Cloud in that lane, and he's decided to go back and farm for another reason. But with that Infinity Edge being completed on Niantanso, like, he is supremely scary in this game, and I really want to see how these teamfights develop, because it's so rare, like you say, Riv, that both teams have the one focal point of threat. It actually is going to matter what the other guys do to shut that down.
We'll see the Aegis is being built out, so Aura's already being team focused here on the side of Vulcan. It looks like there's even a Shirelias that could possibly come out for Bloodwater to get these initiations going. We've also known him to build some damage, but we don't see that just yet. On the other side, no Auras yet, really just a lot of damage.
And it is Marn's, I guess, MO just to try to kill everyone at this point. It's going to be tricky for them, right? Because yes, Shen is the tank and Mega Zero can be a very tanky tank, but the initiation from Claky D followed up by Echo, they have to have a lot of damage because Claky D's shield is a temporary shield when he goes and initiates with his ultimate, so they have to be able to finish off fights very quickly, which might be why they're going all out on damage. Usually I criticize teams for not building Aura items, but it actually might be the right choice at this point in the game for Marn.
Let's see what they decide to go. They are going for some wards here to be safe. Know they have to keep their farm game going on as well as keep that objective control going. 20 seconds on Dragon. An almost finished Rabadon's cap as the needlessly large rod is picked up. A Hex Drinker picked up by Psycho Sid here to mitigate some of that magic damage as well in these long fights.
And I want to see, like, even though they're not building a Runic Bulwark for Marn, you can tell Claky D and Mega Zero, the two people that are really going to be face-to-face with Mandatory Cloud for the most part, have already picked up a substantial amount of magic resistance.
Right.
I mean, I feel like Mega Zero might finish that off to a Spirit Visage pretty soon, and then it'll be an Abyssal Scepter for Claky D. But again, Marn just rushing down that Dragon, I think that's another smart pickup.
Could be able to pick that up. A quick expunge there. Does Smithy want to engage? The flag toss is in, so he is forced to all in on this fight as they get the Death Sentence to the back line. Zuna pushes off both Claky D and Mega Zero. They go back for the fight. A nice final spark onto Duke Smithy. They don't have him anymore for the fight, but Claky D follows and goes down as well. 2 for 1 right now in favor of Vulcan as they push Marn back into their jungle.
And Nian Tonso got wrecked in that team fight. When Mandatory Cloud teleported in, he flashed immediately and got the extra root on Nian Tonso. Psycho Sid was on top of him the entire time, and we knew the 2 focal points of damage from those both teams would have to battle it out. In that one, Mandatory Cloud just crushed him, even though Marn got the Dragon. So that fight was equalized because Vulcan played it right, but they lost the Dragon. So overall, unless they make something happen now, that's no real gain.
The gold is exactly 1,000 apart right now in favor of Vulcan. 3-2 in turrets at just 26 minutes into this game. Like we said, that Rod of Ages fully stacked on Mandatory Cloud now. He is waiting for that teleport and flash to come back up for his next strong initiation. And really, Vulcan is timing these things perfectly. They're going in on the engagements. Yes, that was the even fight, but that's the window they're fighting with. So if Marn can start to adapt and figure that out, they can really fight when they don't have their power.
And there's actually a bit of an argument to be made that Marn wants to fight within the next 3 minutes, because that's the cooldown on the enhanced flash for Mandatory Cloud. Normally flash is a 5-minute cooldown, but because of the Summoner spell and the Distortion Boots, every 3 minutes Mandatory Cloud's going to be able to flash on Nian Tonso and blow him up. Because Nian Tonso is not building magic resist, he needs to build the damage since he's really the only person on the team to create kills, and their team strategy is to try to kill everyone really, really fast because they don't have the sustained damage from any kind of tank line, right? So if Marn can force a fight while that flash and teleport are still on cooldown for Mandatory Cloud, you can see they're already half off, so they don't have much time. They might have an advantage, because otherwise, that flash blow up for Mandatory Cloud might happen every time.
And with their builds, though, does it somewhat favor Marn wanting the late game with that Nian Tonso, with Zuna going towards the Static Shiv, with Psycho Sid? Obviously, you're going to build the Sunfire or Renekton, but they're keeping the lane split and push. This means Marn is going to farm longer. Is that going to hurt him?
Marn is definitely going to be trapped into farming a little bit longer because they are down, you know, 1 more turret. They seem to be on the back foot a little bit in this case. And I think even though it's a close late game battle, that Vulcan thinks to scale a little bit better. Lux, once people build a bit of magic resistance, you can't blow people up, is a little bit weak, but Marn trying to force in that window, there they go.
Mandatory Cloud gets hit up for a second. Mega Zero being able to take a good amount of brutality there, and they may start to turn this one back. Good shots. It's not on to Nian Tonso, though, and he may take out Bloodwater. Bloodwater knows he has to turn around to save his team.
And now it's on Vulcan to try to make something happen elsewhere. There was another reason Marn went on that. It was because it was a 4v5. But Vulcan is just trying to get as much turret pressure throughout the map, trying to keep Marn running around. And even though they did knock the Oracles off Bloodwater as well as kill him, that was great. They didn't gain any map pressure from it. And that actually might be what Marn needs to accomplish.
And that was a great squeeze in that fight. Mega Zero knew, you know, Mandatory Cloud couldn't flash out of that, couldn't get himself out. So he took the time to do the damage. Zuna was able to come up on the backside with the team, pick up that kill. 7-6 as they close that gold gap a little bit. Actually, it's still around 1,000 in favor of Vulcan, but really that's not going to mean anything this late in the game. That Abyssal Scepter is finished. Looks like we may also get the Shirelias coming out from Heartbeat side in the bottom lane. A 1v1, Mandatory Cloud and Nian Tonso here, but Mega Zero comes in, makes it a 2v1 in a rock, paper, scissors game. It's a little out of hand. Mandatory Cloud says next time.
So that was the 1v1 we've kind of been waiting for. Now Niantanso's trying to heal up, but stuff happening in mid lane as well. Looks like Claky D gets pressured back. I wonder if they're going to be able to hold this turret because we have Thresh coming up from the back. There's a Crocodile in the top lane pushing as well, so there's a lot happening right now, Rick.
They are still putting pressure on Mandatory Cloud in the bottom lane too. He's trying to back. They don't have one of those main fight points to pressure this turret, so Marn is kind of sitting pretty right now with what they've just accomplished and having Mega Zero split push that bottom lane.
And look at Vulcan Psycho Sid. Even though he's 0-1, 240 mini kills and a whole heap of map pressure. Maybe we'll see something in the jungle here because Niantanso is stalking his prey on the rat, but pings go down and it doesn't look like we'll see much. Keep in mind, Mandatory Cloud in bottom does have teleport.
See what happens here. Mega Zero isn't on his Renekton as we said before, and they haven't even given him a chance to get into these fights and do a lot for his team. Heartbeat doesn't really even get to put down the box to be effective. Claky D follows after. Zuna is cleaning up this fight with Mandatory Cloud. Mega Zero just on the outside. The Rune Prism, he is forced to defensively taunt away, but he may be locked up for the dance time. One last shot, the feint goes on. He gets out. The jump for Zuna as he kings himself, and it looks like they make it out 3-0.
That was such an awesome teleport by Mandatory Cloud. You could almost think that Marn thought the threat was down since they'd burned his flash in the bottom lane and forgot that the teleport could come in. Marn didn't have control of the wards in that side of the jungle, and Vulcan completely jumped on them at the start of that fight. Took out Marn's initiation, took the fight into their own hands, and that's what Vulcan needs to do to win this game. They're doing it right now.
The Shurelya's have been completed. Saw the effect of just being in the face of each other that fight and how long the fight lasted. They kind of went from behind the Wraith to in front of the Wraith to under the turret. So these fights now lasting longer. It's going to matter the way these abilities are used and really who's getting tanky enough. Like we said, the Bulwark's finished. The Frozen Heart is finished now, and it's going to be big time. Plus Bloodwater being able to sustain the poke better than Thresh. Obviously, you don't get heal there.
And maybe the auras will come into a really big play because there's just the one Abyssal Scepter aura on Marn, but they haven't comboed it with like much more magic penetration, right? They don't have Void Staffs to get people extremely low in magic resist for themselves. And now, 1v1 number like 14, but Vulcan has backup.
Oh, man. Oh, no. Mega Zero coming in once again. He doesn't see it, man. Cloud. Oh, but Psycho Sid just on the back line, too. The 2v2 of a lifetime for these guys. Niantanso forced out. Smithy finds his way into the fight, but it's too much. He is invisible, can't find him. Mega Zero could be the only one to go down here. Niantanso says, sorry, wait, there's the Lantern. Heartbeat, just not soon enough.
Bloodwater's trying to come up the flank. He has Crescendo in about 5 seconds. Vulcan might want to continue this.
Great combination there. Bloodwater loses 75% of his HP. He will most likely get ticked down there. Can the heal come out from Sona? It does. And it looks like they are able to take one more down. Niantanso just one step out of position.
Again, Vulcan just catches them a little bit out. They outplayed the mind game. They had more people coming up, and Mega Zero could not save Niantanso with that. While all that was happening, Zuna actually split pushed another mid turret. So all the pressure and power is coming towards Vulcan as now they have 5 people up, and there's only 3 members of Marn that could potentially stop this Baron.
Chat, they have that Lux Laser. If Echo could throw this one out a little too soon, the vision wasn't there. Bloodwater having that Oracles played such a role right now and gives them a huge advantage with Baron.
The reason that Echo didn't get into better position for that ultimate was because for a long time Zuna was trying to zone him out in the mid lane, so Echo didn't realize that it was safe. That was half a scout laser / half a steel laser, and there was no way he could safely go in to get vision without essentially just giving up his life because he thought Vulcan would be waiting for them. And this was just a cascade of good moves for Vulcan as they got the kills, they got the turrets, they got the Baron, and they're going for another Drake.
And everything is just domino affecting perfectly for them. The next 3 kills they do get on their 705 rise is towards their Tristana to beef up that late game. Echo grabbing a kill there along with Mega Zero, who looks to be building the Aegis for the team now.
And Mandatory Cloud is just such a fantastic player, right? Like, we knew once he got that triple kill, he probably wasn't going to let it go to waste. It took a little bit of time for him to come back, but there's a reason that Marn was using multiple bans on Mandatory Cloud, and that's the only time that they've beaten Vulcan all year. And this time, you're not really going to ban out Rise, but he's hit his sweet spot, right? He foregone the magic penetration by going for those Mercury Treads, but now that he has a Void Staff, he's just lethal, and he should be able to just get on top of Niantanso and blow him up because he's got the flash cooldown, he's got the teleport cooldown again, he's using those distortion boots to pretty much perfection, and it's really just taking its toll on Marn's pressure.
And look how many pink wards they actually have to each other. They got one, or they have, I should say. Mandatory Cloud and Smithy both picking it up, making sure they can find Niantanso instantly in these fights, plus with Bloodwater's Oracle. It's really going to be hard for him to be an effective late game Twitch.
And you can see that Bloodwater is going for the team, right? It's more of a progression that's happened lately. Like at the start of the season, you'd a lot of times see supports go for the Aegis themselves, or they get a lock at themselves. But now it seems like the jungler just kind of eats up all the items. They'll pretty much always get the Runic Bulwark and the locket of the Iron Solari, but the supports will just go Sightstone and then even more wards. And then if they get extra gold, like Bloodwater has right now, he's just going to go for something entirely different because other people are tasked with building the auras in these pro LCS games. And this just helps Vulcan's positioning and map control because they can reverie for that last little to get into a fight.
With Seeker's Arm Guard coming out on Clagy D as well as he looks to armor up a little bit. Archangel's finished over onto Echo's side for this Morellonomicon and that Rabadon's Death Cap. We've seen the Seraphs embraced. Finished for a little bit now on Mandatory Cloud. He was able to effectively use it last fight, and that really stacks on with the Locket of the Iron Solari they have, plus all that magic resistance and defense they're getting from the Aegis. So right now these guys super fight ready. Man Cloud Summoners are up, and they're ready to engage a fight.
They're doing the triple push right now. Vulcan Psycho Sid has been just in the top lane this whole time, merrily farming away and becoming a beast that can jump on top of Niantanso in team fights and actually take a hit or two. Mandatory Cloud also has a lot of armor. Like this, even though Niantanso got so going on Twitch, I don't think he has the presence in these team fights. Maybe I'm wrong, because the later it gets for Twitch, the more powerful he becomes, but we will see a fight really soon at these turrets as Vulcan tries to poke them down and get a pick.
See what they can do. They don't have too much poke to their composition, which would be actually quite effective with no sustain on Marn's side. We just saw Heartbeat taking a bit of room prison there, and he had to back off to get it healed. So it looks like back to the 3 push. They are going to push or get these lanes down to the inhibitor turrets. Quakey D and the team putting most of the pressure on mid. Let's see what they can do. And
Vulcan might want to go on the next middle wave. They know that Echo's ultimate is on a 30-second cooldown. It may or may not be up for that next wave because it was increased in the 305 balance patch. It's on a 30.4-second cooldown at this stage in the game, which actually perfectly syncs with every wave because every wave comes up 30 seconds. But this is the last duration of Vulcan's Baron buff. The last wave they can push with the Baron, and they actually get a turret out of it.
They will be able to pressure that. It's going to be Marn backing off, so they allow damage to the inhibitor turret here, but this could be engaged right when they think they have that last second, right when they're trying to get the last shot. They let it go down and don't even look twice. Zuna and the team leave the base.
And Marn probably realized that this was the last second of Vulcan's Baron as well, and since they'd already lost the Utter turret, they probably just would have lost the game if they fought at that inhibitor, because then they would have completely went through. At least now they have a chance, because if they can fight at the next turret while Vulcan doesn't have Baron, maybe they can win a fight there. And one inhibitor is not the end of the world. So look for Marn to try to make a play, because their backs are against the wall.
And they've actually gotten their pink wards into the base here that they're trying to use. Backing out with the flag toss means Marn is safe for just a little bit from that engagement.
And there's Mandatory Cloud split pushing the side lane. They're trying to get that extra turret down. And there's the play from Marn.
Marn trying to go in. The toss misses as well. Final spark hits on Smithy, but it only procs to the light. They're going to have to back off of this one again. Like you said, Jack, that final spark is down. This wave means so much more without the siege. They're going to try to go for this.
And everything missed for Marn, so if they fight now, it's still a bad fight.
Heartbeat takes so much damage to get the initial catch there. Smithy comes in a Cataclysm on the entire team, pushing them out, dividing everybody. Vulcan coming out with very low health bars here, and it looks like Niantanso and the team could start to regroup, trying to push back in. They are chasing down Mega Zero. Some reason, they got to be careful for Lux, though. It is going to be still, or he and Niantanso are still going to be putting out damage.
So Marn only loses one in that fight. They lost both their inhibitor defending turrets, and now Vulcan is actually still pressing this one. This is a very bold call, because Marn might be able to get a catch and push them off of here. I don't see Vulcan sticking around here much longer, but if they do, they'll get a reward.
Very scary situation for Psycho Sid here. They're kind of playing the bait and switch. If they try to go in, they'll go all in. Get that kill before you can do enough damage. Niantanso maybe putting on a little bit of a trick damage here. Gets that attack speed from coming out of stealth. Isn't able to finalize any crits, though, that he was looking for.
And because Zuna is level 17, he's got 694 range on Tristana right now. That's the great thing about Trist. The range just increases the later and later the game goes. That's one of the reasons she's such a crazy late game threat. And you saw there, Niantanso couldn't trade back unless he would have wanted to pop his spray and pray, but it was already on cooldown. So in those poke situations, unless Niantanso stealths in and puts himself in a really dangerous situation, he can't actually fight back against Vulcan.
More pink wards being bought up here by Vulcan for this next engagement. Niantanso, like we said, that focus, Mandatory Cloud, that focus for these fights, but that was before when it was, I think, a 3-0-5 and 4-0-2. And that means Niantanso hasn't picked up any more kills since then. It's been about 3 or 4 for Mandatory Cloud.
Yeah, it's really just been Mandatory Cloud, along with the rest of his team, making the right plays. Because even though Smithy had all those ganks early that he was kind of falling behind, he made sure to get his items, and he's picked up enough assists that he hasn't fallen into a squishy little Jarvan before, right? Runic Bulwark, plus lock it, plus just some extra items. Most Jarvan junglers don't even get past that. So since he's got the Hex Drinker, it puts a little bit of extra threat on him now. And Vulcan's taken this one smartly. They haven't done any stupid fights. They made sure they've been in good situations, and they might just go to burst down this Baron. The only risk here is that Echo would be able to come out and snipe it, but since they have triple pink wards, not only could they see Echo coming, they could see Claky D coming on Eve. So this is a safe Baron attempt for Vulcan, as long as they don't risk a steal when they see Marn coming.
And they are going to begin that. No wards around there are going to give Marn the vision to get in. Vision's power.
Vision is power.
And it doesn't look like there's going to be much power coming from that, except for Vulcan coming in. Can they get it? The Shirelio's on. The flash is there as well. Claky D is caught up. The crescendo goes across. He doesn't even have a chance to figure out what's happening. Psycho Sid's going to push off 2 in the top lane, causing the ultimate here from Thresh to come out, so they don't have that either on the defensive push. This could be a final one coming in from Vulcan.
Vulcan might look to clean all 3 inhibitors. It's a pretty bold move to try to finish off the 2 Nexus turrets at this point, since they've only killed Claky D, but these are unprotected inhibitors. They have a Baron buff, and Marn is completely desperate here. I do not know what they could do to stop this.
They got waves coming in on each side. Mid has a big one coming in. Bottom one is going to have to be stopped, since that super mini wave was coming from the backside of the last. It looks like they will destroy this one as well. Like you said, Jet, all 3 are down. Do they choose to stay and give harass, or do they choose to head out? It looks like they're going to pressure the last few super minions and see what they can get out of it.
And this is the last stand if I've ever seen one for Marn. The super minions aren't there yet, but those turrets are going down. Wow. And Marn, even though it's 4v5, I feel like they're going to fight pretty soon here. That
attack speed that Zuna gets out of rapid fire is so much at this late game level 5 from that ability, and we're going to see he had 4 or 5 shots on the turret. It's almost down. The Nexus turret is going to regen its health, so if Marn can kind of keep a defensive wall of bodies on that, they'll be all right for the time being. Marn waiting for all their super creeps to, or sorry, Vulcan waiting for all their super creeps to arrive. They just killed those inhibitors, and the super creep wave has arrived in the top lane. So here we go. The 2 turrets are there. They go right onto Echo. He doesn't even stay for a second. Mega Zero gets dropped right after that. They're going to be able to go on it. Double kill coming in for Zuna. Triple kill coming in for Zuna. Can he get another one? The one goes to mandatory for the 4th. A quadra kill for Zuna coming in on his favorite, that Tristana play. The win 19-7 at 40 minutes over Marn. Mandatory Cloud got him here, and then Zuna finished off those 4 other people at the end of the fight, so the quadra comes in big. The farming happened for Vulcan. They kept up map pressure this entire time, and in this battle for 6th place, after having 2.5 weeks off to prepare, Vulcan came up big.